25 worst criminals ever detained, according to Reddit. Number, let's call it 25. I was a detective in a town I worked at, and of course, had to cover calls on a rotation. I was on a call on Halloween one night and got a call about a shooting that had just occurred in a fairly decent part of town. Well, I was already out due to another incident and decided to head on that way, figuring if there was anything to it, I would get called anyway. Being that it was Halloween and that this part of town, I, of course, thought this was just another prank call. As I'm headed to the call, dispatch advised that they are getting multiple calls and reports of multiple victims. With this, I realized this probably wasn't a prank call, and actually ended up being the first on the scene. Turns out that some kids were trick or treating, and when they knocked on the door of this house, the guy inside freaked out and unloaded an AK-47 through the glass door into two kids and the father. The kids being over 10, but less than 14. The oldest child took most of the bullets, killing him. The father and the younger child survived. I then spent 3 hours interviewing the suspect. I've interviewed a lot of suspects, murderers included, and this was the most mentally and physically exhausting interview of my life. That was almost 8 years ago, and the whole thing still haunts me. My God, the first entry had kid death in it? Jesus Christ. Buckle up. And maybe I ought to change the fucking song while we're at it, because I didn't think it was going to be this dark. You see what I'm saying? Not that this is okay. It's just a bit intense. So let me find that other song I always like playing. What is it called? Long Note? No, let's do this one. Here's hoping that's a decent balance. So as we continue up, we reach number 29. The worst criminal I ever arrested was a serial rapist who had killed at least 6 women ranging from mid-teens to early 20s. I was unaware of this at the time and was arresting for driving while intoxicated. When we ran his fingerprints, they matched those found on a weapon that he had used 6 years ago. He was with a heavily sedated 14-year-old girl when I pulled him over. 14, jeez. When I arrested him, I felt relief that I might have saved the girl's life. If the suspect had had a fatal accident due to his inebriation. Later, I felt horrified. It was less about being happy that I'd caught him and more about how sickening it was, maybe, that I could be on a different route or not noticed his erratic driving, and that maybe a girl would have been raped and or killed, possibly countless more after that. Well, damn. As we continue up to number 28. I once arrested a deranged woman. That's how deranged she was. I can't even say it right. I was like, deranged woman. Somehow got involved in a big fight that started with teenage girls. It blew up and was a royal, full-on battle royale. Come on, man. You got that ahead of yourself? The craziest Oh shit, the crazy lady was HIV positive and decided to start biting everyone in the fight. When I pull up, I hear her screaming, "I hope all of you catch it." Surprisingly, she only got 5 years for felony reckless conduct. Oh my God. She'll be back on the streets trying to infect people with HIV/AIDS. You know, before you know it. Good Lord. As we travel up to number 27, the worst ever for me was a guy who tortured his girlfriend. He tortured his girlfriend's 3 small children until one died. The scene was a subtle yet horrific when we started putting the pieces together. The children initially wouldn't speak about the suspect at all. Now, a couple of years later, they only make cryptic statements like, "If I did X, he would come and do Y." It was the only time in my career I've seen a cause of death ruled as torture. Jesus Christ, man. You know, I didn't expect it to be this edgy. I mean, I'd have saved it for tonight if I thought it was going to be this insane. Well, let's continue. Number 25. Oh, damn. It was a Sunday morning shift. We briefed at 7 a.m. At 7:15, we responded to a stabbing at a morning bar. This is a regular dump, where there's always dodgy people doing dodgy things, fights, drugs, you name it. As my partner and I arrive at the scene as the second or third patrol car, a couple of ambulances are also on the scene. I see a black male lying in the middle of the street, shirtless, a pool of blood forming beneath him. Paramedics are working on him. We enter the bar, and there's another black male with a stab wound to the abdomen. He's conscious and receiving first aid. On the street are intoxicated patrons in chalk. Ambulances arrive, more police, and investigators. Description of the perps are radioed out, and the hunt for them commences. We stay on the scene. Fast forward to being back in the station 3 hours later. We have 2 arrests, 1 perp is still at large. We have his identity. The victim first mentioned dies on the spot. A father of 2. Oh. The second lives. A third was already taken to the emergency room as we arrived. All 3 were black males. The perps were Arabic. And the investigation shows that 2 groups had been having arguments and small brawls through the morning. The Arabic group finally been thrown out by the bouncer. Agitated, they return to the scene, one wielding a knife. CCTV footage shows him stabbing the first victim 10-ish times just outside the bar. The victim had just stepped out, falling to the ground, and the perp bows down and stabs a couple more times. He enters the bar and stabs the next black guy he sees, just walks calmly up to the guy, quickly thrusts the knife into his stomach, walks out of the bar. There he stabs the third victim. Turns out this guy had just stepped out of the bus going to work. Too bad for him, he happened to be black. Luckily, he also lived. Anyway, knowing this and having seen the consequences and the hurting that follows, I had a sick to my stomach feeling about the guy in our holding cell. I had a debrief with a psychologist a couple of days later where I described a vision of me taking my baton and beating this guy to death right there in the cell. The last perp was eventually arrested in Lebanon or wherever and received a 10-year sentence. He was a knife psycho. Worst morning ever. Well, damn, baby. I didn't know y'all could kill niggas and get 10 years. They tried to put me away for life for something I didn't even do. Damn. Well, that's the life. That's the world for you. Damn, baby. Stabbing motherfuckers. Well, only one of them died. Okay. Alright. As we continue up this list to number 24 now. Oh, Lord, now. Police Redditor with 24 years on the job and 8 years of being assigned to sex crimes. Sex crimes? I don't know why we need your credentials, homie. Just tell us your story, mate. The most evil prick I've ever dealt with was about 2 weeks before Hurricane Katrina. A 17-year-old girl disclosed to family members that her father had been sexually exploiting her since she was young. And the last incident was the previous night. Jesus Christ. Only number 24. Only number 24.
Hard.
Whoa. Well, I appreciate that donation, Candy Striped. I appreciate that. Diggle Niggleshin. I feel like everybody in the stream chat is only just waking up. Either that or you guys are a different crowd entirely from the ones who are normally at the stream 12 hours from now. Hannah says she found a soy sauce that expired in 2009. You did it, Hannah. You did it. As we continue with this entry, the most evil prick I ever dealt with was about 2 weeks before Hurricane Katrina. A 17-year-old girl disclosed to her family members that her father had been sexually exploiting her since she was young, and the last incident was the previous night. On the forensic side, I recovered her father's semen from her stomach and off of the bed sheets. It took me several hours to interview the suspect. He was part of the African Identity Moorish nation, and he tended to use circular logic. Think about trying to interview Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton. Oh boy. It was so frustrating that my partner walked out of the interview. Eventually, I began talking to the suspect about African identity, and because I have a large base of useless knowledge, we wound up connecting. It was pretty funny imagining a white cop talking the suspect about philosophy of moves, John Africa, or the Yahweh Ben Yahweh. Okay. Eventually, he asserted that because his ancestors were brought to America against their will, he was not subject to our laws or customs. Therefore, it was his duty to introduce his daughter to her obligations as a woman. When she was about 8 years old, he had her performing oral sex on him. Then when she was 10 years old, he decided that she was mature enough to decide if she was ready for sexual intercourse. From that point forward, he began having sex with his biological daughter a few times a week for the next several years. The suspect even began referring to his daughter as his second wife. He also physically abused the younger male sibling of the primary victim and used threats to terrorize his wife. Nigga, this is number 24, nigga? What the fuck? Oh my God, I still recall driving home after working an 18-hour shift on the case and watching the sun coming up while thinking to myself, that is the most evil prick I have ever come across. This ain't the shit that's supposed to scare you, you cuck faggot. The fact that should really scare you is the fact that this isn't unique. This isn't special. Nothing that happens is the only case of something that happens. Whatever is happening somewhere else right now, under everybody's noses. It's been happening. It's going to continue to happen. And some of them won't say anything, unlike this 17-year-old girl who decided to pipe the fuck up. Some of these assholes are out there and they're going to be getting away with this shit, son. I remember the one we read about a father drugging his kids so that like they associated the sexual abuse with their fix. Oh my god. Then when I got home, I could not sleep because I realized that there was probably someone more evil than him roaming this planet. Good. Oh, it was one sentence away. Yeah, bro. That's what you're supposed to feel when you're reading this type of shit, or when you watch a documentary and it's all like, and the murderer made a necklace out of the vaginas, and after he peeled the skin off, he would lick them and shred it and use it like cheese upon the food he ate, like the seasoning of the human. You know what I mean? It's not that shit that's going on. It's that there's somebody else out there that's like, damn, that's a good idea. You know what I mean? They're all out there. They're roaming. Jesus Christ. That's the good news. Well, the good news is that he pled guilty and took 40 years without benefits. Just 40, brah. He'll be out to rape that daughter again. Which means he will probably die in custody or be in his 80s when he gets released. Oh my god. I didn't think it was going to be this legit. So as we travel up the list of 25 worst criminals ever detained, here we are. At number 22. First post. Throwaway account. It's never a good sign. I'm terrible with dates and time frames if I didn't write it down, but I'll never forget October 26, 2013. This was in Brooklyn. Squad called in 85 at such and such address. A neighbor had called in an assault in progress, and the detective squad happened to be on the block for another reason. They got there fast and met the perp coming out of the front door. We get there a couple of minutes after as the perp is being walked in handcuffs to the cop car. I went into the house to see if everything is okay and what the 85 was about. Long story short, the perp hacked a woman and her 4 kids, infants to 12 years old, to death with a meat cleaver. Mom and oldest were still breathing when we came to the door, but not for long after that. 3 babies were in the back bedroom. The apartment looked pretty much like what you would imagine if you tried to imagine something like that. You could taste the blood in the air. There was so much of it. When I walked out to get a look at the perp, a detective told me, see if you can get his name, but don't ask him anything else. The guy was seated in the back seat in handcuffs and had a look in his eyes that I can't even describe here. The devil was set loose in that apartment. God damn. As we arrive at number 21, received a call from a concerned neighbor in an apartment complex. She advised a female upstairs was screaming for help. Me and my partner conducted a knock and talk, and a very large male answered the door wearing boxers. We asked him if anyone else was in the apartment. He looked back towards the bedroom, turned and looked back at us, and paused for a second, and then said no. Yeah, real inconspicuous. My partner and I looked at each other, sensing something was wrong. We looked down and observed blood on the tile and made entry due to exigent circumstances. I spoke with the male in the living room, and I see he was getting extremely worried. My partner walked into the bedroom, and I see his face lose color. He stepped back and started shouting, "Lock his ass up now." Then he tried to make a run for it. After he was detained, we returned to the room, and I saw a girl locked in a dog cage, beaten half to death. The investigation revealed that he had been holding her hostage in the apartment for several months, raping her and pimping her out to sick fucks and forcing her to eat dog food. She was unable to stand. I believe both legs and arms were broken. Both eye sockets were so badly... Oh my God, both eye sockets were so badly broken and bruised, they swelled up over her eyes. The bedsheet, which I could only assume was once white, was completely covered in bloodstains. I've been on the scene of somewhere around 100+ murders, countless auto fatalities, and everything in between, and to this day, it's just about the only thing that gets to me. I couldn't understand how someone could be that evil. When I returned to my patrol vehicle to run their information, I looked at her driver's license photo and couldn't recognize her. That's how badly she had been beaten. I've seen her once since the accident. She is now blind in both eyes and can still hardly walk. It sucks to think about how many times I've been at that apartment building on other calls while she was locked in a cage and had probably been standing just feet away from her. The entire time the suspect was in my back seat, he was just staring me down through my rearview mirror with the smuggest fucking grin on his face. I had to step out of the car and get away from him because I was getting so worked up. I don't think there's a punishment severe enough for that monster. Well, I'm sure the American justice system will just find some innocent people to punish to balance out the scales. As we roll up to number 20, what the bing bong Jimmy Christmas. Police officer. Wait a minute. Give me a second. A few years back, I got called to a priority job. A rape in progress. 2 a.m. I worked in a country with unarmed police. Neighbors hear a girl screaming and banging and crashing from the neighboring unit. I worked in a small town. The only backup was 20 minutes away, dealing with something else. I had to go. No one else around. I arrive and start walking up the driveway, and all is quiet. A male comes out from down the side of the neighboring unit, the one that called, and asks me, "What do you want?" I recognize the male as a child sex offender. I ask him why he was down the side of the unit. "I live here." I knew he didn't. Local knowledge. All good. "What's your name?" "Get fucked. I don't have to tell you." Technically true. "Why are you down the side of this person's unit?" No answer. I tell the male he's under arrest for trespassing. "No, I'm not." "Put your hands behind your back." "Bring it on, cunt." I pepper spray him and deal to him with my MacLeod torch. He puts up a half-assed fight. I quickly get him on the ground, arrested, cuffed, and dragged down to my patrol car, crying like a little bitch. Slapping on some bitch. The male has spent most of his life in prison for various rapes and child molestation. Gets some piss-weak sentence, 5 years or something. Oh my God. Turns out he had gotten drunk, walked to his partner's daughter's house, and tried to rape her while she was asleep in a room with her baby. Only reason he didn't was because he was too drunk to get an erection. Only reason he didn't was because he was too drunk to get an erection. Frustrated, he beat her up instead, told her if she screamed he'd kill her and the baby. I only wish I had beaten him harder when I had the chance. Mm-hmm. Well, as we continue up, we arrive at number 19. I hope there's no more than 3 more kid rape stories. This is beginning to get a bit much. Several years ago, I was called to a rural residence in my jurisdiction for a heated disturbance involving firearms. I work a rural county that covers almost 1,000 square miles with 3 other deputies. 4 deputies are on duty at any given time covering the area. To ease in keeping up with the story, the violator will be called Grandfather in his upper 60s. The son of Grandfather, 911 caller, will be called Son in his early 30s, and the victim, Grandfather, will be called Child, 7 years old. When I arrived on the scene, I saw the son standing with a handgun in his hand and the handgun stuck in the mouth of the grandfather, who was on his knees. This took place in the front yard of his residence. My camera/audio was rolling due to me running lights and siren to this call, so all of this was recorded and played a significant role in the prosecution. I slid to a stop and exited my car expeditiously while taking cover behind the driver's side wheel. Well, I had my Glock 34 out quickly and began giving commands to the son. He was in tears and screaming. The grandfather was motionless on his knees. Please don't be kid rape, man. With a gun in his mouth and his hands up. The son was screaming at me that he, the grandfather, had sexually assaulted his son's daughter. What you waiting for, my nigga? What you waiting for, my nigga? You know what I'm talking about? You know what the worst part is? Here's the bottom line, and I'm going to say this to you one time, motherfuckers. People got limbs. If you don't have the balls to take a nigga's life, you have the balls to consequence somebody for something that they fucking are clearly not human enough to know better than not to do. You're fucking abusing a minor. You a old dirty ass man and you abusing a minor, my nigga. What's fucking wrong with you? If you don't have what it takes to strike a motherfucker down, and hey, some of us don't have it, and hey, who are we to decide who gets to live and who dies? Niggas got limbs though, okay? You can't be, it doesn't matter if you're related, homie. When you fucking around on this kind of wibbly-wom magnitude ass crunch, just shoot this bitch in both his fucking legs. Shoot him in the hand. Shoot him in the fucking shoulder. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, what happened, nigga? I'm just saying. Maybe that's how I'd handle it. I wouldn't put him on his. He's not gonna learn anything from that. Well, look, I told him repeatedly, okay, that I was there to help and all that good stuff. Yeah, you're gonna unrape the guy's daughter, mate. He took the gun out of the grandfather's mouth and threw it behind him in the grass and stuck his hands up. I moved forward and placed him into handcuffs, as well as the grandfather, due to me not knowing anything else about this situation. I then recovered the firearm and placed it in my vehicle. I confirmed the only other person at the residence was the child, who was inside at the window and watched all of it unfold. The child was 7 years old. Just saying. Just want to go ahead and make everybody aware of that one more time. Sexually assaulting 7-year-old kids. You know what I mean? You're not just any dirty old man. You're related to this motherfucker and the kid. Come on now. Anyway, oh my God. My help was on the way, but still about 20 minutes away. I brought the son in front of my car to be recorded and asked him what was going on. He explained that he, his daughter, and his father or grandfather of the child all lived at the grandfather's house due to him losing a job recently, and the son had a tough time after coming home from Iraq and holding a job. The son explained to me that he asked the grandfather for permission to use his laptop. He received permission and began looking stuff up on the computer. The son found a suspicious looking folder on the desktop and opened it.
Tomorrow is my birthday, so I celebrate with a donation to you.
That is beyond sweet, Kelsey, and you didn't really have to, but I appreciate it nonetheless, and I hope that you have a wonderful birthday, Kelsey. You deserve nothing less. Happy birthday to you, Kelsey, even if it's early. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope all of the terrible types of things that are rolling down in this list don't occur with you at all in your entire life or with anybody you're related to, because this is a bit much. I'd ask you how old you're becoming, but that's not something you ask a lady. But I mean, you can tell if it's what you want. So forgive me as we continue this list, man. He explained that he was on the grandfather's computer and found a suspicious looking folder. The folder had hundreds of pictures of his child daughter in extremely explicit positions, as well as performing sexual acts on the grandfather. Needless to say, he flew into a new dimension of pissed off and immediately retrieved his handgun and dragged his grandfather out, or the father out into the yard to avoid bloodying up the house, in his own words. He pistol whipped him and placed him on the ground and stuck his pistol in his grandfather's mouth. Listen to me, motherfuckers. I'm gonna say this one time, and I don't care how brutal or assholish or, ooh, you're a criminal, Kyle. How can you even have that kind of shit in your heart? If I have a fucking kid and my dad rapes that kid and I find documentation, solid fucking proof that this nigga was raped, no, I'm not gonna kill him. Dead men don't learn any fucking lessons. But will this nigga end up in a fucking cage to be pimped out and have his asshole fucking split the fuck open so he could taste what rape feel like? Maybe. You see what I'm saying? Does that make me any better than a criminal that I want to put somebody through what they do? You know what I mean? Who knows, dude? But that's your fucking daughter. I feel like this is a whole nother element, man. I don't know what it's like to be a parent, but I do know that parents go crazy for their dumbass kids, because that's something that came from inside of them, and your job as a human is to take care of them and look after them. You know what I mean? This little girl is 7 years old. She didn't know what the fuck was going on. Okay? Pulling this nigga out into the front yard and putting the gun in his mouth, he ain't gonna learn nothing from that, man. Beat this nigga to a goddamn, make him wish he was dead. What is wrong with you? Maybe I don't need to talk about it. I can't get involved in this shit. This is fucking disgusting. But how do you even react to something like this, man? What the hell? He never did explain to me why he called 911 instead of shooting the grandfather. What a big man. What a big man. I placed him back into my vehicle and told him to remain quiet because I needed to get the information out of the grandfather to get a conviction. What do you mean information, nigga? Ain't nobody deleting shit on that laptop. This nigga left it in the folder on a fucking desktop, homie. Listen. I like to think about the alternative because I know the legal system in America, homie. I know the legal system in America means that even if they got this nigga like clean, what's he going away for, 30, 40 years? Oh, big deal. Oh my God. Anyway. I guess I should have mentioned I spent several years as a criminal investigator prior to going back to the patrol division, so I knew exactly what to look for and to obtain during the investigation in order to obtain a conviction if a crime did in fact occur. Did you miss the part where this nigga said he had fucking child pornography on a goddamn computer? What kind of fucking case you trying to open and shut, nigga? What? Ask him, hey, is that computer still in there? You know what I'm talking about? Is it password protected? Do you have the password? Did you shoot the fucking laptop, homie? Like, what do What is happening? You still got to jump through more hoops to get a conviction? You show a jury a picture of a fucking a 60-year-old nigga's dick in a fucking 7-year-old's mouth, and you think the jury's gonna be like, I don't know, man. She could have tripped and fell. What the fuck are you talking about, mate? This list is gonna piss me the fuck off because I'm tired of the fucking legal system in this pussy ass country, and somehow it's even worse overseas. Somehow, somehow. What? Anyway, let me just try. Yep, let me just try to, okay. I then brought the grandfather in front of my car and got out a written Miranda form from my car. I read and explained to the grandfather his rights, to which he signed in writing acknowledging he understood them. The grandfather then waived his rights in writing and spoke to me without an attorney. I tried to play to his emotion and ask him what was happening. He hung his head and told me he did something bad. I tried to belittle it and say stuff like, "At least no one is dead. We can all work through this, man." You're playing good cop. I'm gonna fucking explode. I'm gonna fucking explode. Why doesn't he just fucking go to jail right now? I hope that none of the niggas in there find out what he did. Because hopefully they rape his ass and kill him. Oh my God. I can't get through this. He proceeded to tell me that he had been molesting his granddaughter for several months and had pretty much done everything but have intercourse with her. I asked him if he photographed any of this activity, and he acknowledged that he did. I asked him where it was, and he told me that he had it on the desktop. A few jump drives and some new photos should still be on the digital camera. Thinking about Fourth Amendment rights, I got a consent to search form and requested he sign it to allow me to collect these items. He signed it, dumbass. Nigga, he's wanting jail as protection, but ironically, hopefully they fuck him up in there for doing what he did. Shut up and continue, Kyle. I would have gotten it anyway with a search warrant due to an overwhelming amount of facts present so far. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, the grandfather first pled not guilty. What? Okay. The morning of the trial, he took a plea deal for 80 years to serve for what he did. To be honest with y'all niggas, the only reason they got his ass on so many years was because they had fucking evidence of that child pornography, baby. If this was a he said bullshit with this little girl, they would give him, even if he pled guilty, he wouldn't go away for a long time, baby. It's that child pornography, baby. He documented this shit. Oh my God. As far as how that made me feel, I will never understand how the son didn't turn his father's head into a canoe, motherfucker. I cannot fathom the rage and anger he must have felt. I kept in contact with the son after the arrest, and through the prosecution phases, he eventually told me that he didn't shoot him because he didn't want his daughter to lose her grandfather and father in one day. Damn. That's logic, man. That's logic, and that is so man. He's a bigger man. He's a bigger man than a lot of men. He's a bigger man. There aren't a lot of things that can send men flying off into fits of emotion. You know what I mean? Most men gotta be drunk as fuck before they getting female type emotional. You know what I mean? Most men gotta have their fucking life flipped upside down, usually by a fucking woman. You know, a nigga gotta walk in on his own bitch fucking another dude or some shit like this before they just, you know what I mean? What the fuck? You know what I'm talking about? But to have your daughter violated by her grandfather, who is fucking taking pictures and video, and this is a normal thing. This happens all the time. Like, oh my God, blow this nigga's brains out. Who give a fuck about some blood on the floor, baby? For real though, if anybody deserved to be in a cage, spite all his rage, grandpa's getting fucked in a cage. There's a reference for well, oh my God, I have dealt with more savage people and been in a few rough spots before, but the cold-heartedness demonstrated by this bag of douche towards his own granddaughter, well, that blew my mind. It blew my mind. Kyle likes to apologize for the, I want to say spiraling out of control that came over me just now in the midst of that list. That's a bit much though, nigga. Come on now. A dude had his dad rape his daughter, dude. After you came back from Iraq and you a big enough man, motherfucker, to not blow this nigga's brains out, to not torture this guy. You've been overseas, I assume, in fucking combat. Combat changes you. It's kill or be killed over there. You know what I mean? You're trained to be something fucking different. You're trained to basically go as carnal as fucking humanly possible, which ironically is not human. It's savage, nigga. You gotta go back. You gotta be twitch. You gotta be wired. You gotta be shooting shit that moves because it's you or them. They training kids out there, putting guns in their hands. There's fucking, IEDs and fucking C4 and shit planted in the ground that's just waiting for your ass to blow your ass the fuck up. Because your life means nothing in this overarching fucking huge squabble over resources or whatever the fuck we fighting a war for, you feel me? So for you to come back now to try to sit the fuck down, pay some bills with some bullshit behind a desk job, fucking have a bullshit ass family and live the American dream with a stupid ass hoop society trying to make you jump through, to not be attacked by outside influence, motherfucker, but be attacked from within your family, is having sex with your daughter, dude. You got a gun and something inside you hesitates. Nah, man. I don't know. I just want to know the name of the dude, because that is his name Clark Kent? Is he? Because we saw Superman break a nigga neck in the last Man of Steel movie. Moving on. Number 20. No. We're at 17. Good lord. 17 on the list of 25 worst criminals ever detained. God damn, baby. God damn. My partner and I chased down a kidnapper / rapist. As long as it ain't a kid rapist, I've seen enough. Guy convinced a petite drunk girl to go into an alley. Oh, she's drunk. God damn it. While back there, he beat her and tried to rape her. If she's drunk enough to go into an alley with you, dude, why you gotta beat her? And you know what I mean? So many of these girls are willing to do shit. Download Tinder, you broke motherfucker. You know what I mean? So many of these girls live for this kind of thrill. You don't need to beat a hoe up. You don't need to rape a bitch. Some girls are down. Why are you doing this? She was wearing jeans and he couldn't get them off. What, is he drunk too? If she hadn't been wearing jeans, he'd have completed the act. A passerby called 911, and my partner and I stopped him less than a block away. His fly was down, and he hadn't even put his dick back in his pants. We caught a lucky break too. The entire attack was caught on a security camera, and we were able to immediately obtain it. Watching the video nearly made me cry on duty. With that arrest, we were able to close out 3 other sexual assaults. The guy was a serial rapist who usually preyed on homeless women. He was homeless himself. It's been 1.5 years since the arrest. We go to trial in a few weeks. I can't wait to put him behind bars for a very long time. What, so we can have a home and be fine? Some of these niggas need to be shot. You out there sticking out your fucking dick in people against their will. What the bing bong? You can't just be penetrating niggas. I don't know, man. I'm not saying we should need to bring the execution back or something. I'm just saying, hey, man, you want to stick your dick in somebody without consent? All right, I'm going to let you off with a warning. That's how our legal system works. But if you do that twice, I'm chopping that dick off, man. You're going to be living your life without it. You're going to be smooth down there like a fucking Ken doll, man. Number 15. My worst was a response. How did your brain know that that's what this was supposed to be? Because reopens is a completely different word. But my worst was a reopens didn't make sense in your brain, Kyle. It didn't make sense in your brain. So I've used my mind powers to rewrite history. I'm kidding. Oh, man, what a list. I really should have saved this for tonight. It's too good. Not good in a good way, but good in a bad way. It's so bad it's good. Oh my god. Sorry. Ugh. I guess. I am not praising this. I'm not condoning this. I'm just saying. My worst was a response to a home for attempted suicide with the individual still armed with a knife. When we arrived, the suspect was walking down the side of the road at 3 a.m. covered in blood from having cut himself over most of his body with moderate to deep cuts. While we were standing around ordering him to drop the knife, he stood like a statue, not saying anything but staring. This guy was a towering 6'5", 220-pound man who looked at me, a 6 foot, 160-pound, 22-year-old, and said, "I'm going to take your gun and shoot him," referring to my FTO at the time, who was similarly built to me. I deploys a taser, which did nothing but anger him. My FTO deployed his, which brought him down. Trying to handcuff a man covered in blood is terrifying. All the blood-borne diseases you can contract. He was transported to the hospital for his self-inflicted wounds. Upon further investigation, this guy had been luring cats and dogs to him, which he would end up killing and skinning. Well, in this guy's shed, he had had a harvesting room where he would turn the pelts of these animals into clothing. You name it, this guy made it. The entire thing reminded me of some horror movie, which was with a stench that you could not stomach. That was my first week as a sworn officer. I turned 21 3 days before graduating the academy. I've been on now for a year or so, and that is the only guy I have ever met I believed could have taken my weapon and killed me. He later was declared mentally competent and charged. He as well was not suicidal, but angry because he messed up one of his creations. Somebody said, "Oh my god, this is my biggest fear, that I'll be lumped in with people like this guy. I collect skulls from definitely already dead animals. And if I ever see roadkill, I'll be tempted to try to tan the hide. But certainly not an obvious pet. God damn, what a psychotic evil person." Somebody said, "Why do you collect skulls? Out of curiosity? What the Bing Frubanoms?" Someone says, "Kyle, in Norway. From what I recall, the highest prison sentence you can get is 21 years, yeah? And like most European countries, there's no death sentence." Where's that? What's the accent is that? What are you trying to do here? Candy Stripe says, "Are you sure that man wasn't a shaved bear?" Oh my god. Remember that time I was talking about beer, but I said bears instead? That would have made the story more interesting anyway. Here we go. Number 15. Oh my god. Oh my god, number 15. Wow. Why doesn't anybody love me? I'm kidding. Number 15. My worst was a... You just read this, nigga. Really? Oh man. Do you need a break, Kyle? I don't know. Can't break in the middle of the video. But you do need to get your shit together. So here's what I suggest. Why don't you resituate yourself in this chair? Oh, sucker now. Hey! Get up. Get on up. Number 14. This might be a little different, and I'm late to the party, but here goes. A few years ago, we get sent as the second car to a family disturbance. Sent as routine. Halfway there, we get updated to roll a code 3 to a shots fired. At the same time, at the same house. We arrive there and there's a young man with what looks like a stick in his hand lying on the ground, already dead. My partners have an older man in handcuffs in the back of their unit. After speaking to a lady, the wife, and another young man, the son, who were home. The story comes out. The family disturbance was the deceased young man breaking a chair and hitting his dad with the broken chair legs. The dad gets a gun, warns the son. Son doesn't stop. Dad shoots son in the face and kills him. I will never forget the way the father looked me in the eye and said, "I'm going to hell for this, aren't I?" Damn, baby. It takes a specific kind of parent to inflict, like, serious damage to a kid, man. You know? I like to think all parents reach a point where they're just so bored or sad or pathetic or without an outlet that they use their children as an outlet. I mean, it's happened to me. It's happened to most kids. But most parents have a built-in, okay, I'm going too far switch. Go wash off the blood. Go to your room now and nurse your wounds. You know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying? This is a bit much. You took a gun and shot your son. I don't know. Let's pick a point on the body. Leg? No. Torso? Nah. Okay, let me shoot him in the arm? Nah. Face. Shoot him in the face. You know what I mean? Maybe a warning shot? Nah. You better stop, boy. I'ma kill you. Dad, no, chill. As we go up this list, man, we reach number 13, man. We gotta laugh or we're gonna cry, because the world is scary and this shit's happening all around you. Trust me, that's what's really scary, is the world outside your home. And sometimes inside your home as well. Number 13, I had a call once in a major metropolitan area during my probation period some years ago. Hannah just sent me a text message that says, I'm pretty sure you've read this list before, which is bad because even I don't remember. Okay, I had a call once in a major metropolitan area during my probation period some years ago. The fire department called us for help, saying that they had been threatened with a knife wielding. They'd been threatened with by... That's why I can't read it well, is because it don't make no damn sense. They called for help saying that they had been threatened with by knife-wielding maniac while attempting to render aid to someone. My partner and I got there and saw the fire department just standing there. So we're thinking, okay, this guy's probably gone and we will have to just take a report for them and get to our next call. That's the first time I heard the screams of someone about to die. The shrill terror in a person's voice is completely distinguished from your everyday scream for help or yells of anger. It sends a shiver down your spine. My partner and I didn't have time for backup to arrive or make a tactical plan, so we entered an apartment complex by ourselves and followed the screams until we located a door we thought they were coming from. I kicked in the door and we entered to find that knife-wielding madman stabbing a woman in the chest. Shots are fired. Man goes down. As though a scene from a movie, after the shooting, backup comes running in to clear the rest of the apartment while I awkwardly handcuff this man, who is bleeding all over my uniform. He's missing either his radius or his ulna, one of the two wrist bones from a bullet shattering it. There's blood everywhere, and you can smell it in the air. This is also the first time I held a person while they were dying, which isn't particularly pleasant either. The man passed shortly in the ambulance, even with the fire department outside already. We later discovered the man was on drugs and suffering from mental illness. He had attempted to kill himself a week prior and failed, so the higher-ups believe this is how he wanted to finish himself off. Death by cop. The woman survived, and that's the only happy bit of this story that we can fucking harvest. Son of a bitch. Faith says you have not, Kyle. Damn. That's two Kyle experts telling me I have and I haven't read the list. Who am I gonna believe? What are we gonna see? How is this gonna unfold? Find out today on the Kyle list. As we roll up to number 12, I had a guy who had been fucking his girlfriend. God damn, son. 3? Okay, just read it. Just read it. No input. Number 12. Had a guy who had been fucking his girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter. 3 years old. He found out he had gotten busted and took a whole bunch of methadone and probably anything else in the house he could get his hands on. Was found unresponsive and put in the ice bath by his friends, and one of them was nice enough to call 911. Hell of it was that when we showed up, the girlfriend is defending him, stashing contraband and trying to keep us from entering the apartment without a warrant. This nigga said exigent circumstances, hip hop, hooray! Get out of my way. And we got him down to the hospital. The hell of it was, why people keep saying the hell of it? Oh my God. The hell of it is that while we get him out, she flushed all their shit and deleted all the images from his phone of the rapes. He took pictures of the flow. This a 3-year-old nigga. Just put a bullet in the brain. You catch anybody fucking something under 15, under 17? What the fuck is wrong with you, dude? There are hoes out there that easily resemble bitches 5 years older than them. Fine. 10 years old? Never. 15 years old? Never, dude. What the fuck? 3? Shh. And the bitch defended her. Okay. The fucking mom choosing her rapist boyfriend over her daughter, lowest of the low. He pled to a lesser charge, eventually due to a lack of evidence, and she caught a tampering with physical evidence charge and got her kid taken away. She's out and works at a local restaurant that I'll never go to again. Is that a happy ending, that the kid got away? A 3-year-old was raped. This isn't a happy ending. Bye. I need to get out of this list. I can't do this. Number 11. Police officer here. I remember getting a call one time of a guy who was high on meth creating a disturbance at a local hospital. First officer gets there and they immediately start fighting. I eventually get there and help my partner cuff this guy. He's a big time gangbanger and he's super methed out. 2 other officers arrive and the guy is just laying on a hospital bed. Well, we're all just waiting for medical clearance paperwork so we can book the guy into jail. Well, all of a sudden, he slips his cuffs and jumps up and wants to fight again. One officer takes him to the ground and we all end up on top of him. I swear the guy had superhuman strength. At one point during the struggle, I hear a loud bang and look over at my partner. All of a sudden, he says, "He's going for my gun." I look over at the guy and both his hands are on my partner's holster. I start checking my buddy to make sure he wasn't shot, and then I saw a bullet hole in one of the cabinets near us. Eventually, I just yell at the other officers to just pick him up and take him outside to one of the cars. We carry him outside. I'm looking around the ER. It's a ghost town. Once outside, we shackle his legs to his hands, and I took him to the county and booked him. Needless to say, that was an unforgettable night. Why can't they all just be like this? A rowdy asshole. Oh, why can't they all just be like this? One rowdy douche that goes crazy. You ain't gonna arrest me? Oh, boy. So as we continue, we arrive at number 9. Arrested a doctor for sexually battering female patients. Oh. I've had partners of mine arrest even more. Whoa, 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 whoa. What did Raphael say where Faith banned him? Oh, come on, guy. That's not cool. Yeah. Well, enjoy making that a new account, I guess. Arrested a doctor for sexually battering female patients. I've had partners of mine arrest even more awful people like child rapists. But this man I actually arrested. He would only target his female clients who were mental health patients, so that many of their claims were overlooked due to their existing bipolar disorders or depression. He was a piece of shit and his wife sat next to him the entire trial. True love, right? He lost his medical license, but we lost the case due to almost half of the victims refusing to testify and his high dollar, very educated attorney. It's true, baby. If you make that money, then you can make the system bend to your whims. Much like the mental case patients that you are making bend in that. Okay, that's enough. Number 8. Oh boy, can we make it through this list for real? Like I'm literally getting a little queasy. Woo. Never read these on an empty stomach. Or maybe that's how I should read them, because then I'd have something to come up. Here's hoping everybody in the stream chat's having a decent day. As we continue the list of 25 worst criminals ever detained. Here we are at number 8. I honestly feel that the majority of people I arrest aren't bad people and aren't criminals per se. That being said, there are a couple dozen arrests that stand out in my mind. One particular one stands out, not necessarily the worst, just one that sticks out the most. Oh, why don't you fucking get to it? The suspect was approximately 40-ish, had a 15-year-old daughter, was a meth addict, lived in complete squalor. They get evicted and the daughter gets taken into state custody. After a year of counseling, finally discloses that her daughter would inject her with meth and rape her. Therapist comes to us. We bring her in for an interview. This girl, I believe, may have been 17 by now, is no girl. She's intelligent, articulate, and lived well beyond her years. She details in remarkable detail how one night her father injects meth into her right forearm. This happens several times. One night he is extremely high, gets her high. As she is walking into the kitchen, he pins her against the wall and rapes her. This begins to happen on a regular basis. Suspect eventually convinces daughter to start bringing friends home. Suspect injects friends with meth and rapes them as well. Daughter continues to bring different friends home so that the dad will rape the friends rather than her. Oh my God. Eventually, when they get evicted, father kicks daughter to the curb and 2 of the daughter's friends go live out of the dad's car in a nearby park. Oh my God. While these kids, these kinds of things happen all the time, it was the victim that struck me. When asked why she didn't tell someone, she replied, "The first time it happened when he pinned me against the wall, all I could remember thinking over and over is, this is my life now. This is my life now." I will remember those words for the rest of my life, as clear as they were said to me. I can still hear the inflection and tone in her voice. About 8 months later, I ran into one of the other victims, the daughter's friend. After the dad was evicted, he lived out of his car with her. She was 15-ish at the time. Initially, she was going to cooperate in the prosecution, however, disappeared. She's 18 to 19 now. When I last saw her, I didn't recognize her until I saw her identification. Heroin, meth, and the streets have destroyed her. She won't be alive much longer. Number 7. I've been in the police for nearly 2 years now. I was working a late shift on Christmas Eve, which is usually a matter of holding the fort and counting down the clock until the end of the shift. We get a call, sudden death, an elderly gentleman. A shame, certainly, but nothing more than an assumed routine inspecting the body for signs of trauma and calling the undertaker to remove the deceased. We get there and go in. The gentleman is lying on the sofa with a duvet covering him. I perform the usual inspection of the house, looking for anything out of place or suspicious. Not that it'd be easy. The house was like your over-the-top hoarder's palace. After some inquiries, it became apparent that the gentleman had lost the use of his legs many years before and lived downstairs, relying on his daughter to care for him utterly. We have to inspect the body for any signs of trauma or suspicious marks prior to calling the undertaker so that we are sure that there is nothing untoward in relation to the death. We lifted off the duvet as only his head was showing, and I was rather taken aback and stunned. The main images, having studied history at university, that came to mind was the picture from the liberation of concentration camps, emaciated and starved corpse. This man had been dead for no more than 4 to 5 hours, yet he was all skin and bones. He relied on his daughter to take care for him, and she clearly had not been. He lay there in his own filth, wasting away, without anyone properly looking after him. It was utterly despicable. Death has a very distinct smell. It clings to your uniform and your body. I finished my shift in the early hours of the morning, went home and tried to sleep. I couldn't. I just lay there, eyes wide open, the man's body and his haunting stare taking center piece in my thoughts. In the end, I thought, fuck it. I'm not going to sleep at this rate. I got in my car and drove 100 miles to my parents to spend Christmas Day with them. To end on a slightly more humorous note, whilst opening one of the doors in the house, a cat jumped on me in the darkness, and I absolutely shit myself. Nearly tumbled down the stairs with a shrill yelp. Number 6. The earliest memorable person is a 16-year-old who killed 2 men by stabbing them in the head with a screwdriver. He was just acting the hard man in front of his mates and picked on these 2 guys for nothing. The thing that got me was his complete lack of remorse or regret. I'd never properly understood what a psychopath was until then. Well. Number 5. Oh. Cop here. I respond to a child not breathing. On arrival, I find a 2-year-old girl wearing only undies. Please God. Unconscious on the cement kitchen floor. She is freezing cold, pale, foaming at the mouth, and barely breathing. I spent the next 6 hours by her side as detectives learned that the mom's boyfriend was pissed that she wouldn't stop crying. So he picked her up by the waist, over his head, and slammed her on the ground. Twice. When Mom got out of the shower, he told her she wasn't breathing right. Mom uses the girl's asthma inhaler twice and waits. An hour and a half later, she goes to her neighbor's house to use her phone to call her mom. The neighbor overhears the conversation about a baby not breathing and takes it upon herself to call 911. The girl received a basal skull fracture, which caused little seizures. She vomited several times, but lay on her back for over an hour. She aspirated the vomit repeatedly. For nearly 2 hours, that little girl lay on the floor with her skull bleeding into her brain, her body temperature being sucked into the floor, trying to breathe vomit. And for the next 6 hours, I sat with her and held her hand, stroked her hair, and watched her die, hoping that her little brain shut down and blocked out everything that was happening. That case still makes me tear up to this day, and it was one of the 3 worst calls I've been on. I don't know how someone can do that to a baby. Number 4. Man convicted of molesting a 7-year-old girl got placed on probation. Man convicted of molesting a 7-year-old girl got placed on probation. Walked by me at a Walmart one day holding hands with a 6-year-old boy. It was the grandson of his new girlfriend. Similar to his previous victim, typical of his offender grooming profile. I stopped him in the store. We got a hold of the boy's paternal grandfather, who came and picked him up. The guy's probation sentencing was messed up and didn't have the standard sex offender conditions of probation, no unsupervised contact with children, no living near schools, etc. So literally nothing happened to him except for those conditions being added the next week. Number 3. A fellow who molested a number of his preteen daughter's friends. It can't be. This whole list can't be. He'd have her invite them over for movies, then drug their Sunny Delight and rape them. We never figured out exactly how many girls he raped, but we were able to prove up to 28 counts. The arrest was not particularly satisfying. Having to be near him and listen to his diatribe made me feel unclean. His conviction and subsequent long sentence made me feel like being a cop was worth it at least 1% of the time. Number 2. This guy and his wife started fighting in their apartment in South Los Angeles. It escalated into the guy being picked up the... Oh! What the fuck? This guy and his wife start fighting in their apartment in South Los Angeles. It escalated into the guy picking up the 5-month-old baby and charging at the wall with the baby's head as a battering ram. He then threw the infant out of the 3rd floor window. As I sat in front of my police car with this guy cuffed in my backseat, all I could think about was a Pulp Fiction type turnaround and put a hole in his head so it would never happen again. It was very early in my career and made me think about whether I could handle 25 to 30 years of these kinds of things and what kind of person it would turn me into. The child The child actually survived. And the man convicted. I put this incident away in a little sealed box in my head and forgotten about it until seeing this thread. Now I'm sweating and angry again. The guy got 18 years in prison. Baby had a fractured skull. I thank my patrons for doing what they do. I apologize for the selection of this list. Who could have imagined it would be as dank as this? You know? Who could have imagined? I really don't know how to feel about this. So yes, thank you patrons, thank you subscribers for, joining me in this stream. I'd like to thank Stripes and Kelsey for their donations today. And here we are, thanking the sponsors as well. Get that tip jar out of there. There's more sponsors. God, you gotta remake the sponsor thing, Kyle. God, get on top of shit. But as we travel to number 1 in the list of 25 worst criminals ever detained, it reads as follows. Oh boy. Grabbed a guy walking down the street with a shotgun and one of those 12-can beer holders cigarette companies used to give away. We get the cuffs on him and he starts getting all chatty in the car about all the other guns that he has. One thing leads to another, and we use his statement to get a warrant to get the rest of the guns. We go to the apartment with a warrant, and there are hundreds of different firearms and corresponding boxes of ammo, and we start cataloging it and carrying it out. Then we notice cases of photo albums and videotapes. And it's child porn. I take random samples, and as difficult as it is, and to the normal human being it's difficult shit, confirm that it's children being photographed and doing sexual things. It's logical that given the sampling that the rest of it was kiddie porn too. Well, not enough for the ADA who took the case. I explained to her how we arrived at the number, and she said that in order for him to be charged for all of the porn, that I would have to testify that all of it was indeed porn. I was the arresting officer. I was swearing out the complaint, and I also had to make sure asshole went to jail for a very long time. I sat in a room in the station house for hours on end, going through hundreds of photo albums full of children being destroyed. I viewed videotapes of innocence being swept away, and in the end, I wept. I did not stop weeping for days. 20-some odd years later, I still have my moments. And every so often, I'll see a kid that looks familiar, and I'll think, it haunts me constantly because I couldn't save them. I'm supposed to defend the ones that can't defend themselves. That was my sacred vow, and yet, all I could do was catalog their horror. Years later, I was a first responder to the World Trade Center attacks and saw horrors that no person should ever have to see, yet 9/11 wasn't close to being my worst day on that job. Well. Oh my God. What? Oh my god. Every day. Alright guys, that was a bit much. Hope you enjoyed this middle of the day stream. Oh boy. Oh boy. Huh. Well, yeah. That was that. Love you guys. I don't know, man. Go take a shower. Go take a shower after all that. You guys have a great day. I'll see you tonight. I'll pick something lighthearted. Sorry. Later.